Ready? Play.
Good afternoon from Malaga and good morning from somewhere central in the US, right, Craig?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas is the capital, right?
It is the capital of Texas, exactly.
Lance Armstrong, is that his
This is Lance's country. He spent a lot of time. It's a lot of undulating terrain, a lot of hills, great for biking. Biking is everywhere here.
Are you a biker?
My wife is. No, I was out on my bike this morning on my mountain bike, running my dogs on the trail behind my house. So that's about the extent of my biking.
Craig, you're certainly an early riser, and I noticed it from your picks at Wimbledon this year as you were enjoying the early opportunities to taste and savor centre court. But we're not here to talk about Wimbledon. That's for the European summer. We're in the midst of European winter, although fortunately here in Malaga it's still pretty sunny. So let's get to Turin. You were there, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, for the almost the entire time. I came back Saturday and then did a report for the ATP on Sunday here from Austin.
Got it. Okay. Let's begin with the final. I think we have to. The first question I have for you regarding the final is sort of where was it won and lost, especially thinking about the round robin stage and some of the differences between those two matches?
Yeah, I was courtside, front row, right on the baseline for the round robin match between Novak and Jannik. And when Novak gets a little passive, when he's not quite, dictating out there on the court, he hits too many backhands. That's the MO. He always has. When I worked with him 2017 to 2019, I was always cognizant of the backhand to forehand ratio. When he's humming, he's looking for that runaround forehand. The runaround forehand has three benefits: it's upgrade, double, and freeze. The upgrade is I'm putting the forehand and the backhand as the sword and the shield. So when the ball is hit to his backhand, instead of him using his shield, he puts the shield down and picks the sword up. From the back of the court, it's about 75% winners from the forehand side. So certainly when he hits the runaround forehand, which accounts for the majority, the runaround forehand for Novak in the ad court has more forehand winners than forehands in the juice court. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal to hit the runaround forehand. Secondly, you can double the target area. You can go inside in, inside out, much easier than with the backhand. The backhand sometimes is even inside out going down the line. And lastly is that you freeze the opponent so that when you do the runaround forehand, they can't tell from your positioning where it's going. So upgrade double freeze really makes the runaround forehand very, very potent. And when Novak's not hunting that and he's settling for backhand, sometimes when he gets nervous, he knows the backhand's going to go in. He doesn't mind hitting backhands, but it's not really hurting opponents. He got away with it in Paris. In the final, he had a lot of backhands. But in this match, Sinner was crushing backhands. He was just roping them to, corner to corner through the ad court. And it was to Sinner's benefit. And Novak, didn't really pick that up. He was cruising till 5-all in the first set, 5-all 40 love. And he loses that game. He got tight. He served a double folded deuce. Sinner was crushing balls. He hit Novak served and volleyed at 40 love. Probably shouldn't have because it gave Sinner a target. Sinner hit a backhand winner that went right through the line. And from then on, Novak immediately got into it with the crowd. The arms are going up. And he got distracted. And he didn't see the game plan as clearly as he needed to. And Sinner was just dominating ad court exchanges. Sinner was the one wearing the pants from the baseline. And because Novak was distracted, he didn't pick up on all of this. So for the rest of the match, he was, even though it's 7-6 in the third, it was one of those matches where it was just a matter of time. Jannik was always had the better strategy. Novak was having to dip into higher risk patterns at play. And, Jannik won. But in the final, he adjusted. I don't know whether he read my analysis. It kind of looks like the carbon copy of what he should do if he had read it. But he came out firing. He came out looking for forehands. He came out dictating with his forehands. He said he changed strategy. So we're going to assume he did. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you make that adjustment? So he played much better and much more strategically in his favor in the final. Sorry, John, I can't hear you right now.
I put myself on mute, Craig, and forgot to take it off.
Yeah, well, that happens to the best of us.
Maybe that happened to Novak in his first encounter, and it didn't happen to him in the final with Sinner. What I was really interested in, it's great that we've got you on right now, because actually strategy was something that was mentioned quite a bit by both players in a way. That Jannik said he expected a different Novak in the final and a different strategy. Novak talked about some of the things that happened to him in his press conference, I think, in the first match when he said he was maybe a bit too passive in the big moments and the big points, and that wouldn't happen again. And of course, they did end up playing in the final. So I thought that sort of conversation, I think I remember Jannik saying something like, I know he's got a plan, or I know he's going to be different in the final. And I thought that element was particularly intriguing, but particularly how the final went. If we got the same result, then we could have maybe thrown changes of plans and strategies out the window. But because we got a wildly different result, I thought that was particularly intriguing. What about Sinner? What could and should he have done maybe different in the final?
Yeah, and just before I answer that, going back to what you said, the other layer of that is it's a monumental achievement to beat Novak at any stage, especially in a year like this where he's dominating so much. I think he only lost 6 matches for the entire year, but to beat him once, congratulations, that's awesome. To beat him twice in a row, almost impossible. Almost impossible. So the fact that Jannik had won the first encounter, I think just in general, from a belief standpoint, from now Novak's got a lot more motivation. He's got revenge on his side. He's got the final. He's got his legacy. He's got, adding to his career. I think he's up to 98 or 99 tournament victories now. To beat Novak twice in a row is literally almost impossible. So Jannik had that against him. Jannik tapped out early and panicked too early in the point in the final. And I would give Novak a lot of credit for that, because Novak came out pummeling forehands. His average forehand speed was much higher than Jannik's. I don't remember exactly, but it was significantly higher. And so now Jannik's playing a little bit more off the back foot. Jannik's forehand historically is the side that can get loose. His backswing is quick. His backswing is quite big. He goes after it. He doesn't have a great defensive forehand. When he gets pushed into that corner, position A, out wide in the juice court, that's historically where he starts spraying forehands. He is improving in that area. It did get better, but he wasn't tested in that area in the round robin stage, because there was just so many backhand exchanges. But in the final, Novak made sure that he brought extra speed to that corner and extra pressure to that corner. And early on, I wrote about, I think, Novak hit, his first 11 forehands. I think he extracted 4, 5, maybe even 6 errors from Jannik's side of the court. And right from the start, Novak going up 3-1, it just had a completely different feel than the semi-final. And you just tell on Jannik's face, he wears, even though he's by far the strongest mentally / emotionally of the entire group, out of the 8 players, he doesn't get as upset. He doesn't get as mad. He doesn't get as frustrated. He doesn't slam his knee 8 times in a row like Rublev's doing out there. He does. He keeps the toys in the pram and goes about his business. But you can just tell on his face early on is like, this is a different deal. This is going to be much tougher. And Novak was coming at him, and that's why he couldn't dictate nearly as much as he did in the round robin, because it was much more of a forehand dominated match rather than backhand.
Do you think with Jannik in that final that there was any difference as well in terms of expectation, in terms of the pressure that would obviously building throughout the week with every match that he was winning so incredibly? I think his backhand was on fire in the semi-final against Medvedev, but also Italy was getting a bit of tennis fever, I think, and the Carota boys and the emotion within the stadium. And do you think that may have played any particular role, particularly as Jannik took a set and a half to settle to some extent? I mean, maybe we're taking away a bit from Novak in terms of his incredible performance, but just looking at Sinner, was he, pulling the trigger too quickly is something you touched on, panicking a bit too early in rallies? Was that a mental thing, do you think, at all?
Yeah, we didn't see this problem up until the final. So it was a Davis Cup style crowd in there. The Italians have finally got someone that they can get behind. Certainly there was Berrettini for a while, but not at the ATP Finals. He played a set and rolled his ankle, and Matteo's been missing at this event. So to have Jannik there, the Italians just went ape droppings. It was unbelievable the amount of energy in that stadium, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing for our sport. And it didn't bother Novak until he got down, until he was, behind. Then he, he's a little negative and he's a little pissed off, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go engage this crowd because I need to let out some of this energy. I need to, kind of press the pressure meter, and sometimes he screams at his box, which happened less in this event. There's still a little bit, but happened less. But boy, was he was so locked on, so positive, so ready to go, and things were very clear in his mind. So I think from the final, we go back to the 3 round robin matches in the semi-final. Jannik was in superb form. He played extremely well, and we just didn't see him kind of shocked and bullied around the court like we did in the final. So I think I don't think it was the crowd, because Jannik had that for 4 matches. I think the crowd helped him. I think he handled that well. I just think it was Novak finding the right game plan. Thank you, Craig, and going and executing it and ripping forehands and taking it to him instead of hoping the opponent was going to give it to him.
Fair enough. Let's have a quick look at 1 or 2 other players that did take part, at least, albeit that they got taken apart, or on one of these occasions got taken apart by Novak, and that's Carlos. Where does Carlos need to improve in these conditions, in particular indoors in Turin, to take the next step?
Yeah, I watched his first match, and he looked very, I say very average for the number 2 player in the world, for how amazing he is. He set the bar so high. And the problem for Carlos wasn't this event. It was the lead up to this event. It was fractured. There was problems with injury. There was problems with plantar fasciitis. I just had it for a year in my right foot. I couldn't shake it for a year.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thing because it hurts like crazy. It hurts your movement. He also had a lower back problem. So at least, we know of those 2 things. There's probably 2 or 3 other niggles that he had. So his preparation wasn't good. And I would put down his not making the final. I mean, he's still, even though after that first loss, he still made it out. But he's just not quite there at the moment. The forehand's spraying too much. The forehand's too big. He needs, because he's off a little bit, he needs to defend a little bit more and stay in the point and get his reps and make the opponent change direction under duress rather than him changing direction. So, I think Carlos did about as good as he possibly could with the lead-in that was just not ideal for him.
What about Daniil Medvedev? Where does he go from here? I mean, actually, this time a year ago, the future and the immediate future looked pretty bleak for Daniil, having had the sort of post-Australia hangover, if you like, that carried on throughout the year. And in fact, we had a resurgence in February of this year. And actually, I guess, outside of the slams, and you could even say with the slams, if you think about Wimbledon and the US Open, but he's actually had a good year in a way. So what about next year? I mean, the problem is that I think you may well agree that Rune should improve, especially physically. Carlos won't be absent for that long, I don't think. Novak's not going anywhere anytime soon. And there's one of Jannik Sinner. I mean, is now arguably a Grand Slam contender. Where does that leave Daniil Medvedev in the pie, if you like?
Well, you've certainly added Sinner to the mix. Sinner is now elevated to a level that he hasn't before. He is definitely a Grand Slam contender. He had match point on Alcaraz when Alcaraz won the US Open. He could have won it that year. He's been sniffing right around for a while, and now he's finally broken through. That win against Novak, that's going to buoy his confidence for the next 12 months. He's going to live off that for the next 12 months, feed off that. So for Medvedev, he's doing nothing wrong. His game is good. I'd like to see him next year not be as emotional under pressure. I'd like to see him a little bit more like Sinner. Sinner keeps it together better than all those guys. Medvedev can engage in the crowd and in quite a negative way, and he just needs to stick to tennis. Stick to tennis. Stick to hitting the ball. Stick to taking titles. Stick to keeping your head in the game and winning these big matches. So I'd like to see him less emotional, and I think just that will create the clarity under pressure in these big matches to find those 2 or 3 or 4 points that he needs to turn a loss into a victory. So he's in a good place. He's an excellent player. I'd like for him to go to the net a little bit more, not only when he has to, but, he dominates so well from the back of the court, but hunt the short ball, hit that deep ball, get the short ball back, and don't be content to go another 3 or 4 balls. Become a little bit more of an all-court player and pressure at the net where the win percentage is always so much better. And he'll be in a good place. So I think he's going to be, certainly one of the top 4 players next year on tour.
Okay, I've got one more for you, Craig, and it's this Boris Becker-Holger Rune partnership. But you could also tell me about, Holger and 2024 and maybe where he could go and where maybe he needs to improve.
Yeah, I think Boris is a great addition to his team. You've got Holger, who's a young player, somewhat of an impulsive player, unbelievably good at coming forward. This is who Medvedev should look at and just go and look at Holger Rune playing, because anything a little bit short, Holger's all over the net. So, Boris brings credibility to win big titles. When you've got a coach, this great picture you've got there, when you're looking in your coach's eyes and your coach has been number one, your coach has won multiple Grand Slams, has been an icon of our sport from a young age, I think it's a great mix. And, Boris is coming out of personal troubles, and for him to be, readily accepted by the rest of the tennis community and tennis fraternity straight back on tour. Boris was so engaging at in Turin. I was in the front row. He was about 15 seats down to my right, and he was standing constantly. To start with, I thought, well, his leg's sore. He needs to stand because, his knee's bad. But, he brought so much energy to Holger and so much positive energy, but also strength as well. So I think that is a really good connection. I think Holger will benefit from that for sure. And I think Holger Rune has an excellent year next year, a really good year. He's got such a good all-court game, probably the best all-court game since Federer retired. So his ability to jump on a short ball, his ability to attack, his ability to serve and volley, his ability to come forward with a forehand down the line when standing with 2 feet behind the baseline is probably the gold standard right now. And he just needs, the forehand can get a bit impulsive. He can spray a bit with that. He can get too antsy when things aren't going his way. You can see them, the nerves go up a little bit. He just needs to stay calm. He needs to chill. He needs to breathe. He needs to take his time. There's nothing that there's no problem that he needs to solve. He just needs to not beat himself. And those are the messages that he needs to really take on board for next year. And, you know, he at some stage next year, he could be number 2 in the world, challenging Novak for number 1.
Craig, huge thanks for coming on and squeezing us into your busy schedule, and enjoy the rest of the year, and catch up with you sometime in 2024. Enjoy
Davis Cup.
I will.
Forza Italia.
Yeah. Oh, you're backing the Italians, are you? By the way,
I've been working with them for 8 years, and I'll be assisting in Davis Cup. So let's hope they finish strong.
Makes sense. And make sure you check out Craig's Brain Game, and also check him out on Twitter as well, and all the socials. Big thanks, Craig, and we'll catch up with you next year.
Pleasure. See you, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.